Hello guys, you're welcome to the third edition of our video on Python basics. In the previous videos, we have been able to establish the facts about the basics of Python, starting from Python installation, Python data types, string methods, and so many other things. And I think the last video we stopped at Python list. In this particular video, we are going to be looking into Python sets and Python dictionaries. Let's get on with that. If this is the first time you're coming through this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and hit on the notification bell so that anytime I post a video, you get notified. You can also share the videos to your friends so that you can encourage us to do more videos. Alright, let's get started. So we can create a file here. Let's call it main.py or py. And to create a set in Python, we do it the same way we do the list. It's just a little bit of difference because we use curly bracket. So let's do that. So let's create a set of numbers. So let's call this numbers. And this is going to be a set of numbers. Let's shut down this AI entirely. And right now, let us try to understand what these numbers are. Let's use print type of numbers. Let's use Ctrl-J to bring up the terminal. Let's make use of the PowerShell, but you can still make use of other terminals here as we did in the previous video. So right here, we can just say Python main.py. And this gives us a class of set. So this is a set. So this is how we make a set. And unlike the tuple and the list, a set is unindexed and unordered, which means that if I print numbers, you can see I have from 1 to 5. It is unindexed, which means I cannot access this set by calling maybe the index of 0. Like that, you can see it gave us a type error and it says a set is not subscriptable, which means it is unindexed. So we cannot use index values to determine the values of each set. Let's say we want to have this number and this number, or want to call a particular number. We can't do that on a set. But the only way we can actually do that is by using for loop on that, or using loop. So we can just say for x in number, then print for x in numbers, print x. This time around, print x. And if let's just clear this screen and try running the code again, and you can see we are able to return the values of this set. Okay, let's go deeper to set. A set can take different types of data together within one single set. What do I mean? Here that we have numbers, we can actually also have Boolean values like true and false. You can also have string values like good, and we can still run this code without having any issue. And like before, a set is unordered, which means it is not ordered. And that's why you saw that this set has false, which is here, but when it prints, you can see false came first before good and so on. And this is because of the fact that a set is unindexed and a set is unordered. A set cannot receive other values after its declaration, which means a set is unchangeable. And again, if you observe closely, you will see that we only have false, we have good, and then we have 1, 2, 3 to 5, but we didn't have true. And this is because in a set, it doesn't take duplicate values, and a set sees 1 as true. So when you have true there, a set will see it as the same thing as 1. And that is, being that a set does not take duplicate values, it will regard both 1 and true as 1, and it will print only 1. And that's why we didn't see the true statement there. If, for instance, this number started at 0, now if we run this set again, you would see that false has disappeared, because in a set, Python sees false as 0. So false is 0 and true is 1. And because Python set does not take duplicate values, it sees false as the same thing as 0, and it arranges everything to be 0, and then does the same thing to the true. And that's exactly why we have this. So let's remove the 0 and 1, and then let's try it one more time. And you can see that we now have false and true. And this is because we no longer have this 1 and 0. And once you have 1 and 0, it is still the same thing as true and false. So that's just that. Take note of that. We can also determine the length of a set, just the same way we did it on the list and on the tuple. And to do that, let's use print len of numbers. And if we run this code, it gives us 7. And actually it is 7 because this is 4 and this is 3. Now let's try adding 1 and 0 and 1. And let's see the length of this. You can still see it still maintains that our numbers is 7 in value. Our set is 7. And that's because the 0 and the 1 are the same thing as true and false. And set does not take duplicates. I hope that's clear. Another way we can make a set is by using a set constructor. And to make a set constructor, we just type set like this, and then every other value is going to be within the parentheses. Now, if we do print and we want to know the type of data the numbers are, if we run this code, you can still see this is still a set. And this is what we call a set constructor. And using this keyword set, we can actually convert from one value to another. For example, if I have this number as a list, of numbers, let's say 1, 2, and 3, as a list of numbers. So this is a list, and we want to convert this list into a set. Let's now, what we will do is to put the list into making it a set. So let's say that y is now a set of numbers. And this gives us type error, and it says type takes one or three arguments. So let's solve it. So the best way we can convert this list into a set is to make a variable. Let's call this variable x or y, and then we say set numbers, and then we can now print x. Let's try, and you can see that this has given us a set, and we can now check for the type of x, and this is going to really give us this class of set. So we can convert from list to set, as well as set to list. The same way we convert from tuple to list, list to tuple, and so on. That's what we can do. Now let's look at how we can add to an existing set. So let's say we have a set of food. This is semo, fufu, jollof. So we have this set of food, and we want to add to the set. So what we can do is we can use the .add method to add to the set. So let's say food .add, and we can add something to this. Let's add egusi to this set, and let us now print the food. Let's print food, and this is going to add egusi to the set, and that's the .add method, what it does. Now the next method we'll be looking at is the .update method and what it does. So let's say we have a set of food and a set of fruits, and we want to combine the both of them together. So we can do something like this: food .update, and then we pass in the fruit, and now we can now print food. Let's run this code, and you can now see that we now have both the food and the fruit as a part of one set. So the dot update method adds the entire set of another set into the main set. So this is a set, a different set, and this is another set. And using the dot update method, we can add the items in this set into this other set. And that is what the dot update method does. Let's look at how we can remove from a set. So let's say we want to remove one item from this set. Say, for example, we want to remove fufu from this set. In that case, we are going to use the dot remove method. So we can say food dot remove. Then here we are going to pass in an argument of what element we want to remove. So we're going to pass in the fufu. And let's run this code. And you can now see we only have semo and jollof. So there is no more fufu inside the set. And that is what the dot remove method can be used to do. Now, I want us to look into this very well. So let's take, for example, that we want to remove something that does not exist. For example, let's say we want to remove rice, and rice does not exist in this set. This is going to throw an error. Let's see. You can see it says key error, and this is because there is no particular key element in this set that is called rice. So we cannot use this method properly if we don't know the content of that set. So you must always know the element of the set before you remove. So how do we avoid this type of error? To avoid this type of error, what we can use is the dot discard method. So using the dot discard method is going to make sure that our code is secure and make sure that even if the element does not exist, it doesn't throw error. It does the same exact thing with the remove method, but the difference is that it is not going to throw error even if the element does not exist in our set. Let's look at that. So let's try the food dot discard method, and let's pass in rice, which does not exist here. First of all, let's clear our screen and let's run the code again. There is no error. Now let's try removing jollof and see. And you can now see we only have fufu and semo, and this is because it does the same exact thing with the dot remove method, but it doesn't throw error even if the element does not exist. Now, what are elements? Elements are contents of our list, tuple, set, and dictionaries. So all these contents are elements. Okay. All right, let's also look at the dot pop method. Now, being that set is unindexed, so we don't actually know which one is going to print. For instance, we don't know which part of this set that is going to print first if we just want to print the content of this set. And you can see jollof, then semo and fufu. But if you print again, you now see semo, fufu, jollof. So you don't actually know which one will print first. And when we use the dot pop method on a set, it removes randomly from the set. It removes randomly from the set. So let's try it. Food dot pop. So here it doesn't take any argument. So if we run this code, you can see what we have is jollof and semo. So it doesn't tell us what got removed. We don't know which one is going to be removed. So let's run it again, and we have the same, and look at it, the code has changed, the return value has changed. So this is what the pop method can be used for, and this is very beneficial if you want to build a prediction pattern game for your audience. In that case, you want your audience to predict what will be removed, or you want them to predict the content of something, and you can use the set function, the set type of data, and then you use the .pop method to make sure that they can actually predict and know which one is the true answers. So there are a lot of things you can do with these things. The next one is the .clear method. So the .clear method empties the set. It makes sure that nothing exists within the set. Let's see it. .clear. Let's run this code, and you can see this is now an empty set. That's the .clear method. And then finally, the del method, or the del keyword, the delete keyword. So if we want to use the delete keyword, we can just say del food. And if we run this code, it's going to throw up an error, meaning that name error, food is not defined. So which means there is no more food there. It has been completely deleted. So that's the del keyword there. So you can also join two sets using union of set. So let's say we have two sets, fruits and this is gonna be orange and almond fruit. And right here we are going to use let's use food dot union, and then we can pass in fruit and print food. Let's see, and you can now see what we have. Okay, this doesn't get redefined, so let's set it as food 2 and print food 2, and this is going to give us a union of the both sets. And here we can now see that we have this set and this set joined together. It becomes a union set. You did it in your mathematics, right? So we can also have other methods like the intersection and so on, but I'm not going to be going into that. If you want to go deeper into these method or these set methods, you can actually go to W3 School and look up for set methods. Okay, so let's proceed into other things. Let us now look at dictionaries, because dictionaries are very important. Dictionaries give us more flexibility to do a whole lot of things. And dictionaries are close to objects in other programming languages like JavaScript. In most cases, you see JavaScript use similar syntax as object. But here in Python, we call it dictionary because dictionaries use key and value pairs to operate. So let's create a dictionary of student. To create a dictionary, we use the curly braces, or you can use the dictionary constructor, dict. So, but for now, we're going to be making use of the curly braces. And right inside here, we can specify the keys name, and this is going to be goodness, and we separate each of the values with a comma. The next one, we can have age of this person, and the age can be 34, and sorry, not this, but comma. So this is how a dictionary looks like. Let's add one more key. Let's add phone number, and this is going to be 090 and so many other things. Let's just make this a string, and right here we have a dictionary. This is how a Python dictionary looks like, and Python dictionaries are accessed using key and value pairs. And the key is these ones, the left by the left hand side, while the value are around the right hand side. Now let's examine how do we access all the values in a dictionary, or all the elements in a dictionary. A dictionary is very important in our programming as Python developers, because we use it to collect details of our data and store it very well. It is ordered, it is also changeable. So, which means we can use it to accept data and also order the values of data very well. All right, let's try and access a dictionary here. So let's use print, and we want to print student. In this case, if I run python main.py, it gives me every detail of the data in the dictionary. But if I want to access a specific value in a dictionary, I can do it exactly the way we access an array in JavaScript, by using the square bracket, and then you pass in the keys of each value you want to get. For instance, you want to get name, then it is student with the square bracket, and then you pass in the key of name. And if we run this code, we have goodness. And we can do the same for age and phone. This is basically how we can access a dictionary value. There are so many other methods that we can use to access a dictionary value. Other ways we can do this is by using the .get method. So we can do student .get, and we pass in an argument of what we want to get. So we can say we want to get the phone, and if we run this code, you can see we are getting the phone number. So this does exactly the same job as this. So it's just a matter of syntax difference, but they do exactly the same thing. Let's say we want to also print the keys in this dictionary. In that case, we have the method called .key and the .value. that we can still use to access the dictionary key and the dictionary values. So let's use student dot key dot keys like this, and if we run this code, you can see the keys of the dictionaries are names, age, and phone. That's the key. But if we want to also access the values, then we use values. And in this case, we are going to only return the values. Now, let me ask you this question. How do we only return the values of this dictionary using for loop? Do it, pause this video, do the exercise, and come back to the solution. All right, let's get to the solution. So the first thing I will do is to create a variable that I will use to store all the values. So to do that, let's call it x, and we are going to store the value of student dot values inside it, and then we can use for loop. So we can say for item in x print item, and I think we are done. Let's run this code, and this is all the values in the dictionary. Very simple. We can do the same for the keys. So if you change this into keys, we can now run this code again, and we get only the keys. So this is how we can do that. We can also add a key and a value into an existing dictionary. Let's see. So to do this, we can say student, and then we pick the key that we want to use for it. So let's say email. And this time around, we assign it as goodness@gmail.com. Now, let us print student. If we run this code, you would see that we have another key and value pair. And this is how we can add to the content of a dictionary. We can also convert a dictionary into a list of tuple. And to do that, let's call this dictionary X, and we use student dot items, and let's print X. And if you look closely here, you can see that this has been converted to a list of tuples. We can also change an item that has already been in existence into the dictionary. We can still change this value. Let's say we want to change the value of the name, and in this case we are going to say student, and then with the name value and we want to change it now to lucky. Right now, let us print the student. And you can see that now the name is Lucky. Look at it here. I hope this is getting clearer. There are a lot of things that you can do to a dictionary, but you just need to spend time, try to get used to it, try to understand how to do these things, what they do, and how to maneuver them. Is very important as a developer to understand the context to what each program does and how to work with it. There are a lot of things that you can do in a dictionary. A dictionary can also be a nested dictionary. Say, for example, we have a dictionary of schools, and inside this school, we also have other dictionaries like this. We can have the name, of the school as Finland International School, and we can also have other details of the school, and we can have another one. So this is what we call nested dictionary, where you have a dictionary within a dictionary. You can also have list within a dictionary, or a dictionary within a list. So whichever way, you just have to know the pattern of getting your data in a list or in a dictionary and apply the concept here, and you get the result. Let's say, for example, we have this dictionary. Now, if you look at this dictionary, this is my family dictionary, and you have child 1 with their name, the year of birth, child 2, their name, the year of birth, child 3, and so on. And this is a nested dictionary. Even the child 1 can still have their own families and have dictionaries within them. In this case, it is very, very essential to understand how to return the value of each element of each dictionary, despite the fact that they are nested. So let's print maybe any of these. Print. And what we want to print right now is my family. And then we want to print the first child. And if we run this code, you will see the name and the year of birth of the first child. And this is because I am only returning the first child, which is this. And this is its dictionary. You can do same or similar to the second or the third. But what if we want to only print the name? So in this case, let's try this block brackets and say name. Let's see if this would work, and it actually worked perfectly, and that is just it. So if we also had another dictionary within here, let's say comma, and we have um, school, school that they attended, and we do this curly brackets, we can now say name of the school, and the name of the school may be Sami School. Now we have the family dictionary containing the child one dictionary, which also contains the school dictionary. So in this case, if we want to print the name of the school, this is going to be my family, then target child one. And when you target the child one, you can then target the school. And if you run this, it gives us the name of the school. So which means we can also add this and add the name. And this time around gets us only the name of the school. So this is just the technicality in a dictionary. Very simple, right? All right, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like the video. If you have any question, use the comment section to ask your question, and make sure you share this video to your friends. All right, now let's look at the if and else if statements. So we use the if statement and else statement and elif statements to make decisions in our programs. Let's just look at illustration. I think using the illustration will make it easier for you to understand. So um let's say that today is Monday. Let's shut down this AI. Today is Monday, and we want to check if today is Monday. We say that today is Monday, but if today is not Monday, we say today is not Monday. In that case, you want to make decisions, and for each decision that you will be making is going to be using Boolean. And Boolean here are going to be returned through logical statements, through logical operators. So let's do that. So we use if today is Monday, so it's equal to Monday. So equal to is double equality sign, different from single equality sign. Okay, take note of that. So if today is Monday, then we print today is Monday. Else we print today is not Monday. And right here in our variable, you can see that today is actually Monday. So we are expecting that if we run this code, we'll get that today is Monday. But what if we change today from being Monday to become Tuesday? If we run this code, it tells us today is not Monday. And this is what we use the if and else to do. Let's do something more robust. So let's do sorry, we can still receive, before I go into that, we can still receive this input from the user. Instead of hard coding it right here, we can receive it using input, and we can tell the user to enter a day. And you can even do this so that you receive it in a new line. Let's run this code, and it says enter a day. So we can say Friday. If we run it, it says today is not Monday. We can still make this much more interactive by saying today is, comma, today. And then today is not today. So just to make it much more interactive, let's run this and enter Friday. And it says today is not Friday. Or sorry, rather, let's change this from Monday. But here we should change it to today. So which is Friday is not Monday. So let's run this again and have Saturday. If you run it, it says Saturday is not Monday. Okay, but if we run this code again and enter Monday, it says today is Monday. So using this input, we can actually receive a value from our user and then use this value to make our program. So we received a value here and we assigned it as a variable called today. Let's do one more thing. Let's create a password and username validation or authentication system. Just a very simple authentication system. So we need to collect the username, and this is going to be input because we want to receive it from the user. So we can tell the user to enter their username. Secondly, we need the password, and this is also going to be an input where we say enter your password. Now we can now validate this using if username. So right now we don't have any database, so we can just make it hard code the username. So if username is the same thing as Richard, and so we want to validate two things together. So this case is that if you don't understand this, go to my first video, the part 1 of this video session, You are going to see where we talked about the operators, the logical operators like the AND operator, the OR operator, and the NOT operators. So it will help you to understand what we are doing right here. So we have username is Richard, and password is 123456. So we want to check if the username is Richard and password is 123456. If that is the case, we can print, let's use string format, which is F, and we can say welcome user name. So we want to mention the name of the user. Welcome user name. This is your dashboard. Okay, but if that is not the case, then we should run the else statement. Else, since this is not the case, we should print invalid username or password. And this is just basically what it is. Let's clear our console and run this code, and it says enter user name. So let's enter Richard and enter password 123456, and it says welcome Richard, this is your dashboard. But if we run this code and we entered something like Anthony and enter the correct password, which is 12326, it is not going to log us in, and it says invalid username or password. And that's because if one of these condition is false, this is not going to run. If we had used or, if we use the or statement, which is or, right, like this, it means that once one of these statements or conditions are true, this is going to validate. So even if this is false, like this is false or wrong, but this is correct, this is going to log us in. But if you use the logic, the AND, what it will do is that it will make sure that this is correct and this is also correct. So if any of them is wrong, it is not going to log you in. And that's what and or does. Their differences. Go to the first video and watch it. You will see my video on operators. Watch the video closely. You will understand the what the logical operators and the comparison operators does. In fact, most of the operators return Boolean values of true and false. But most times, the most important part of it is the logical operators, the comparison operators, the assignment operators, the arithmetic operators. These are the key operators we have, and it is very essential that you understand what they do, how to use them, and so on. Now let's go further. What if we want to tell them that their username is correct but the password is wrong? In that case, we use the elif statement, because if you want to pass two or more conditions. Let's say we want to receive their age, and once they log in, we now tell them their age. In that case, you also need more conditions, and this is very important when you want to make a very long decision in your program. So we can do a lot of things. So let's come here and pull this else down and bring in the elif. So elif username is same as Richard, or rather let's use another thing for this. Let's use color. Color is input enter color here, and then if the color is the same as red, print color is red. Now this condition is that when the user enters a color and the color is red, it validates to true and gives us color is red. What if you also want to validate other colors like blue, green, and so on? Because right here, if you write the else statement, and this ends everything, not the real color. In this case, if you run this code, it tells you to enter a color, and if you enter green, for example, it says not the real color, and any other color you enter here, it is going to tell you not the real color. Even if you enter red with capital letter, let's say red like this, it says not the real color because Python is case sensitive. In this case, how do we now make much more decisions, since we have made only one decision, and then this is if the decision is not true, this one, the else runs? How do we make much more decisions without affecting our code? That is where the elif comes in. So we can now say elif color is also the same as red. We can even use or red. So any of these, we can then say print red color is color, so that we can actually output the right value that the user has imputed. We can also have so many other elif. We can have as many elif as possible. So we can also have color is same as green if you still want to take the green or green. We can also do print color is color. So let's run this code. First of all, let's clear our screen and run this code. Enter color, let's enter red. Says color is red. Let's run it again. Enter color, let's run green. Color is green. Now let's run this code again and enter a wrong color, dark. And it says color is dark. Color is dark. So what happened here is that we are using the or statement, the or operator, and it actually validates even if it is false. So let's try and remove some of the or statements here and try this back again and say black, not the real color. And this is because the elif has run. So else if or elif in Python is used to take much more conditions. So the first elif statement takes a condition but stops at the else. But if you want to take many other conditions, then you have to use the elif. And you can use elif as many times as possible, depending on what you want to achieve at the end of the day. That's just what the if, elif, and else statements can do. There are a lot of things that they can still do, but let's just stop here. The last thing we will do tonight is the Python function. How to set up a function, how to define a function, what a function does, and so on. What is an arbitrary argument function? What is a keyword argument function? And so on. So let's look at this. So to define a function, we use def, followed by the name of the function. So let's call this greet. And a parenthesis and a colon, and then you indent. And within the indentation, this is where you take the block. The block is what the function will do. So let's say print hello there. Now, even if I run this code, this function is not going to work except I call the function. So before a function can run, you must invoke that function or call that function. So we can say greet. And to call a function, it must come with this parenthesis. Now let's run our code again, and you can see hello there. So this is how we can call a function. A function can take parameters. So within here is parameters. Let's just call it variables, values that the function will use just to make sure that the function returns dynamic contents. Okay, so we call it parameter. And right here we can say name. So the name of the person you want to greet right here is the parameter. And we can just say hello dear name. And right here, this function can now receive arguments. Now, I want you to pay attention. Here is parameter. But when you are calling this function, you need to pass in a value to this name. And that value you are passing in to this name is an argument. But the name variable here is a parameter. You can see if I hover on this, name, it tells me parameter. You can see it here. Right here, we can give this parameter a value. Let's say Bonaventure. And if we run this code, it says, hello dear Bonaventure. And this is because Python already knows that the value of the name that you have here is Bonaventure. So it is taking it as a positional argument. Now, why do we call it positional argument? Let's say we have age also here, and we want to say, and you are age years old. So right here, Python is going to receive two arguments, and these two arguments must be a positional or must be positional arguments. Right here, the name for parameter comes first, followed by the age parameter. So since the name parameter comes first, it means that when you are calling this function, the arguments must also be arranged accordingly. So which means the name argument must come first and the age argument follows, just according to how you arranged it here. And that is what we call positional arguments. So this is a parameter 1, parameter 2. You cannot just call this function like this. It's going to throw an error telling you that this is a type error. Greet function is missing two required positional arguments. And the two required positional arguments are name and age. So which means for me to call this function, I must pass in an argument to fill in these parameters at the top. So first thing first, let's say this is Friday. People answer the name Friday, and the age is, let's say, 21. In this case now, if I run this code, it says hello Friday and you are 21 years old. So this is how our function can take positional arguments. So I hope you understand the difference between a parameter and an argument right now. So the arguments are the values of the parameters in a function. That's an argument. The parameters are the dynamic values or variables or state values that a function takes. So why are we writing a function? A function helps us to run a code when we need it to run. So most times you may write your code straightforward, and once you open up your program, all these codes start running one after the other without knowing when to run. But when you wrap them inside a function, it makes sure that each code runs when it is needed. And that is one key benefit of using functions. The second way, or the second benefit of using function, is that you can write a reusable code. You don't have to write codes every time. You don't have to repeat yourself. Function enables us to apply the dry method, which is the don't repeat yourself method, which means we can use one function to do so many things. For instance, right here that we have a greet function. We have greeted Friday. We can also greet another person by just simply calling the function greet John and 30. And in this case, if we run this code, you can see we are greeting Friday as well as we are greeting John, who is 30. So you don't need to always rewrite your code, write code every time. Since you want to do a specific thing on that program, you just wrap it into a function and use it to do so many similar things. That is another advantage of using functions. Thirdly, functions help us to write clean and maintainable codes. So since all your codes are wrapped in functions, if you have a problem or you have an error within the greeting part of a program, you already know that it has to do with the greet function, and you can just go to the function and handle it. So it helps you to write a readable and maintainable code, and so many other things that a function can help us to do. But these are the key things that functions enables us to do. Okay, now let's come to positional argument again. You already understand what I meant by positional argument, which means that you cannot call 30 first before John, and you cannot call 21 first before Friday. And this is positional argument because of the way they are arranged in the parameter part of the function. It's very important. All right, in a case where we don't know the number of parameters or arguments that a function is supposed to receive, in that case, we use the arbitrary arguments. And to use the arbitrary argument, we use asterisks, and then we can just pass in one of the arguments. And here we can just do name as 1, the index of 1, and name with the index of 0. In this case, we are trying our very best to receive different names in form of a list. And here, if we call any function, we can actually pass in all these things. And you don't have to bother yourself with the number of parameters you have, since you have set the parameter as an arbitrary argument. It is going to receive as many arguments as possible. So if we run this code, there will be no problem, and you can still see everything is running perfectly. And we can even return maybe another thing like name with index of 2, and right here you can just pass in other things, and you can see we only have one parameter, but then if you hover on it, you see it says the parameter is a tuple. So it becomes a tuple because it can take so many values. And if I run this, you would see it works perfectly. And that is what the arbitrary argument does. It enables us to receive as many arguments as possible. Even though we are receiving these many arguments, they still retain their positional argument status. So which means it takes positions as well. Another thing is that if you want to override the positional argument of a thing, in that case, you have to convert it to a keyword argument. So in this case now, I will use double asterisk, and this has become a keyword argument. And the way I can access it is just to assign it as simple variables like name is Friday, age is this, color is this. So you don't need to look into the positions again, because automatically, because this is a keyword argument, it turns into a dictionary of a string. Look at it here. If I hover here, you can see my parameter is a dictionary containing string or any other data. Okay, so it becomes a dictionary which you can still access with their key and value pair. And if you run this code, we still have everything, even if we rearrange the whole thing, like cut off this and put it right here. If we still run this code, everything works perfectly without any problem, because they know where to place each and every data. And that is what the keyword argument does. Alright, so this is where we will end today's class. I'll see you in another video. If you have any question or concern or any video that you would want me to do, please leave it in the comment section. If there is any difficulty at all, ask the question directly on the comment section. I will answer your question in my next video. For now, make sure you subscribe, click on the like button and the subscription button, click on the bell so that you get notified whenever I post a video, and do not forget to share this channel with your friends. By doing so, you encourage us to do more videos like this so that you can learn along and become a developer. I'll see you in our next video. Take care and happy coding.